I play a lot of Fortnite.
Your shot's good.
Wow, I guess this is Fortnite. A free-to-play game created by the people at Epic Games. Battle Royale initially, but nowadays I'm not really sure what to call it, to be honest. Anyways, no one can really deny how successful Fortnite is, and the figures, well, they just speak for themselves. Estimates show that Fortnite is worth around $30 billion, with revenues growing in the billions every single year.
I get a clock radio he cannot afford. Great success.
Now, Fortnite is technically a free-to-play game, unless of course you want to pay around $40 for the Save the World expansion pack thing, which honestly, I actually didn't even know existed until now. But you probably guessed it by now, that their main source of revenue is in fact microtransactions. The three main areas are Cosmetic Items, the Battle Pass, and finally Fortnite's own currency, V-Bucks, none of which actually provide any in-game advantages. So, why are people so willing to spend so much money on these things? What is the psychology behind these purchases, and how does Fortnite actually make its billions?
What are you doing in my swamp?
Now, no one wants to play as a default skin. It usually means you are either one of two things. Number one, you're bad at the game. Or number two, you're an absolute god. Well, from experience, it's almost always reason number one. This viewpoint seems to be rather universal across most, if not all players in Fortnite. And because of this, it is why cosmetic items sell. As people, we follow social norms as a way to guide us through social interactions. In Fortnite, it's a social norm to regard the default skin as a generally negative thing, and something to avoid playing as. Therefore, we could say that a norm is to have a store-bought skin. So, if we're playing as a default, we could perhaps feel uncomfortable in these situations, especially if we know someone in the majority who's got a unique skin. And in those cases, it is very likely for us to make an effort to align ourselves with the current norm.
No, don't do it!
And what is one simple way of doing that in Fortnite? By buying a fresh new character skin, of course. I mean, no disrespect to the default skins out there. I personally play with it on, but at the same time, I'm actually quite bad. So, yeah. Anyways, a while later, after serious contemplation on why you only have a default skin, you end up in the Fortnite store, ready to spend your precious V-Bucks. However, whilst in the store, you are met with a psychological hurdle, this being the idea of artificial scarcity. Artificial scarcity is used all over the place, but especially in environments where something can technically be replicated very easily. In terms of economics, when supply is very limited, yet demand is very high, there's a mismatch between supply and demand, therefore the price skyrockets. So in games like Fortnite, you will come across items that have a rating system, which usually corresponds directly to how rare something is. Rare basically meaning limited in supply. The sole purpose of this is to make you think categorically about your potential purchase. It's obvious, no one is really going to buy a common item when there is an option to buy a legendary item for a tiny bit more money. This is basically how Epic Games make their own artificial supply in Fortnite. They make you think that something is worth more simply because it has a more premium price and simultaneously having a more elegant title. I mean, it's no coincidence that the colour of the text spelling legendary is also the same colour as gold. When you finally decide what skin you would like to purchase, two main things can start to happen. The endowment effect can start to show, and the self-fulfilling prophecy can start fulfilling. Now, the endowment effect is basically an emotional bias that causes individuals to value an owned object higher than its original market value. This not only kickstarts the beginnings of a self-fulfilling prophecy, more about that in just a second, but it also means that the initial cost of buying this virtual cosmetic item is more justified as it has greater personal value than its original price. Furthermore, you're no longer in the social minority, and depending on what cosmetic items you bought, you may start to believe that your ability to play a game is actually improving, when at the start it is usually simply down to the fact that you're just falling for a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is of course not necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely helps Fortnite set another psychological trap for your next purchase. The Battle Pass. It comes under many names: Season Pass, Game Pass, Take All My Money Pass. Regardless of the name, the idea is always the same. Persuade the consumer to subscribe to this service and to flood them with amazing benefits so that they have no choice but to buy it again next season. Fortnite was perhaps the main game that really pioneered the advances of this subscription-based microtransaction. As a basically free-to-play game, it had to make money somehow, and the construction of a battle pass system is really something that has changed the gaming industry. Well, I mean, not to be too dramatic here, but it's kinda changed it forever. I mean, like, even the huge companies like Microsoft and Sony now made their own battle passes for their respective consoles, but instead of offering in-game customization, they now offer whole playable games. Anyways, back to Fortnite. Basically, the Fortnite Battle Pass works as a tier system, where the general idea is that the more you play, the more you get. Quite simple really. But the catch is that if you pay a small fee, you unlock extra content, which is only available to the people who actually buy the Battle Pass.
You catch me at your local party, yes I crank it every day.
This special content, however, is not locked or hidden away. Instead, it's in plain sight to everyone, so as to make you fully aware exactly what you're missing out on. This way of marketing is a brilliant way of creating a sense of FOMO in a player. FOMO, otherwise known as fear of missing out, is technically not regarded by the current DSM as a psychological disorder. However, FOMO is still very much a real problem. This feeling of missing out on content can be very much the reason that tilts your decision into buying the Battle Pass. So now you see, you no longer have to miss out on stuff if you just simply buy the Battle Pass. Now, getting the Battle Pass basically unlocks two little but very effective psychological mechanisms. One of these mechanisms is to do with motivation, as when you buy the Battle Pass, you also buy the incentive to grind out the game more than you would perhaps normally, and the other is to do with the default effect.
Do you want some? I'll give it you.
The default effect is basically the tendency for someone to generally accept the default option when presented with a choice. In other words, this effect is the reason why you're still subscribed to a service that you no longer really use, but still are too reluctant to cancel. So if the default choice is to continue buying the Battle Pass, as it gains you exclusive content, then you're more likely to purchase it again in a new season.
Oh, let's go!
We now live in a society where the concept of money is, well, I actually don't know what money means. I mean, what even is money now? Stuff like contactless payments and cryptocurrencies have completely changed what we think money is. Still, I guess at the heart of it, it is still a commodity that is used in the exchange of goods. Money backed by the banks is perhaps the most liquid form of money, but that kind of money can only get you so far in the world of gaming, especially in Fortnite. What I mean by all this is basically that your money cannot directly purchase items in Fortnite. Notice how everything has a certain, almost weirdish kind of looking price in the Fortnite store, both for V-Bucks and in-game items? Well, there's of course a reason for that. We're used to seeing price tags with a price, and then 0.99 usually at the end of it. That is done in order to make us think that something is cheaper, and therefore more pleasant to buy. This principle is kind of contradicted here, in reference to the Fortnite store. The reason for these kinda weird pricing points is in order for there to be a mismatch between quantity of V-Bucks you buy and the amount of stuff you can purchase within the store. Yet what is the most important here is that you're left with remaining V-Bucks that of course no longer serve any real purpose, as it's too little to buy anything else in the store and you have literally no option to exchange these V-Bucks back into your original currency. So I mean, now the only real option is to purchase more V-Bucks. That way you can have enough to spend all of the remaining V-Bucks. But by that point, it's already too late. By this point, the cycle will just simply repeat itself, and you will simply just increase the amount of non-disposable in-game currency you have, which in fact works for Epic Games, but it doesn't really work for you. Now, to look at the bigger picture, you have to imagine that all these powerful mentioned psychological factors, and well, many more in fact that were not mentioned, all play some role in the purchasing decision of an individual. You then expand that to a global scale, and now you really get a sense of how Fortnite actually makes its billions. If you got this far into the video, I have to thank you very much for sticking till the very end, and I hope you found this video interesting. Of course, if you did, then please do hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. We've covered a lot through this video, but that's not to say that I've covered it all. There are definitely a lot more tactics that Fortnite uses in order to make its money, so if you know any more insights, then please don't hesitate to leave it down in the comment section below. But for now, thank you again, and goodbye.